everybody. It's Mayor Jane back for our Facebook Live. Very excited to be here and very thankful that you have chosen to join us. I know there's a lot of things that you have to do in your daily schedule, so I certainly do appreciate you taking some time out to tune in to us and hear what we have, the latest updates on COVID. And then today we've brought in some experts and good friends that are going to talk about some renter, owner, and landlord assistance programs, and then specifically as they pertain to evictions. And so, very timely topic, unfortunately. But trust me, we're doing everything that we can do in the Tampa Bay area to ensure that individuals are able to stay in their homes and that we don't have evictions here in our community. So let's start off with some COVID numbers, some updates, and then I will introduce our guest to you in very, very short order. So our case update is 45,798 total cases in Hillsborough County, including 754 deaths. When we first started these Facebook Live programs, we were doing them every day. And I remember when we went into the double digits for deaths, and it just, it was, to me, it was astonishing. And now we're talking about 754 people who have lost their lives. We had a member of our City of Tampa team that passed away from COVID over the weekend. And so, it hits home. And that number, I just want everyone to understand that behind each of those numbers, there is an individual, there's a friend, a loved one, a neighbor who has lost their life. And that's why we take the steps that we do to ensure that everyone stays safe and healthy in our community. And we all know what those steps are: wearing a mask, distance separation whenever possible, and taking the simple steps to disinfect. So very, very important. In the state of Florida, there have been 760,389 total cases and 16,308 deaths. In Hillsborough County, 351,337 people have been tested so far. And our positivity rate here in Hillsborough County is just under 6%. We were trending down towards 5%, and now we've started to tick back up. And to show you how quickly this changes, the beginning of the week, we were the lowest county in the 5-county area, our positivity rate, and now we have shot back up on that. Unfortunately, one of the statements that I make quite often is about the only thing consistent in the data dealing with COVID-19 is the inconsistency, because the number of tests, the number of positive cases, even the number of deaths are quite often reported in batches or in unique ways. They are reported, they are accurate, but they're not necessarily timely. One of the downward trends that we don't want to see is in the number of tests that are being given. People are not going and availing themselves to the free testing sites. It doesn't mean people aren't still getting tested. A lot of people may be going to their personal physicians. They may be sending off for the kits through their doctor's office or through their insurance company, insurance provider. But unfortunately, my thought is that not as many people are getting tested for it. So we have to make sure that, everybody that was in contact with someone who had COVID, or if you have any of those symptoms, or you just want to know that you're going out and you're getting the test. We also know that individuals can be asymptomatic, have no idea that they even had COVID, and for others it results in death. And there's no known correlation to that. I was on a panel the other night with some USF physicians, and they said that it could be, the difference between asymptomatic and a severe reaction to it could be related to your blood type. It could be related to your immune system, and it could be related to the exposure, whether you were exposed very lightly to the disease or if it was a full-on exposure. And the physicians just don't know. The scientists don't know the exact correlation. It may be a combination of all three. Just don't know. There's so much that's still unknown about COVID-19, but what we do know is wearing masks is an effective way to avoid contracting COVID-19 and a very good way to avoid transmitting it as well. So let's get on to our guests now. Very, very excited to welcome back a couple of guests that have been here before, and I told them clearly I didn't scare them away, so that's always a good sign. So welcome back, Jenna Hudson and Tom DeFiore, and then my good friend Harry Cohen is here as well. So we are going to talk about, as I said before, we're going to talk about the economic impact here of COVID-19 and specifically how it's going to affect individuals in the ability to pay their rent, their mortgage, and then as it relates to evictions as well. So Jenna Hudson received her bachelor's degree cum laude from Rollins College and her law degree from Stetson University College of Law. Jenna is the pro bono manager of the Volunteer Lawyers Program. Jenna served on the board of directors for the Hillsborough Association for Women Lawyers from 2007 to 2017 and held several leadership positions. She is currently co-chair of Howell's Pro Bono Committee. Tom DeFiore manages the Housing and Consumer Unit at Bay Area Legal Services in Tampa Bay. Tom earned a bachelor's degree from Georgetown University before graduating from the National Law Center at George Washington University. He came to Bay Area Legal in 1990. Tom has led the Housing and Consumer Unit for over 20 years. The team's primary mission is preserving housing and maintaining income for the most needy citizens. Harry Cohen is the general counsel to the Hillsborough County Clerk of the Court, and he served on our city council from 2011 to 2019. So thank you all very, very much for, again, taking your time out to assist us today. So first of all, I want to talk about the CDC order that has been issued. CDC has issued a temporary halt to residential evictions for non-payment of rent from September 4th, 2020 through December 31st of 2020. The order supersedes any local moratorium lifts. A tenant, lessee, resident must provide a completed and signed copy of the declaration to their landlord or property owner. That means that you have to take that initiative to reach out to your landlord or to your mortgage broker to provide this affidavit, this signed copy of it. So that's very important, and we can talk about that a little more as well. So Tom, tell us about the present state of evictions here in Hillsborough County.
Thanks, Mayor. Looking at a sort of a history when this started back, the average number of evictions that were being filed, at least in Hillsborough County, starting in April to about July, was about 160 a month. In August and September, there was some loosening of the governor's moratorium at that point. So the average jumped to 650 a month on average. And then looking at October, when the governor's moratorium was officially not extended, at the rate that it is now, it's looking like close to 970 will be filed in October. So there's definitely been a uptick in Hillsborough County, also in Pinellas. I don't have the exact numbers for that. So it is all the more important, as you described, for people to understand that there is this Center for Disease Control declaration that's available, but affirmative action needs to be taken by the tenant to determine if they're eligible for that, sign the declaration, and properly deliver it to the landlord with proof that it has been delivered. So that's very important and a protection that, frankly, we didn't really expect, and that has had a pretty profound effect on the cases that we're handling and getting some time to negotiate, getting some time for people to get some more rental assistance. So it has been a very good thing. So since April, I think like 2,500 or so evictions in Hillsborough County alone. So we expect that number potentially to continue to rise, but that's where we're at least in Hillsborough County.
Okay, now what is a qualification? Qualification basically is that you can show that you were financially impacted by COVID-19, loss of a job, reduction in income.
It's a little more subtle than that, but I mean, there's essentially 5 major prongs, we can call them. The first one is that you have not able to make a full payment of rent due to a substantial loss of your household income. It does not need to be related to COVID. So there does not have to be a tie-in between the loss of income and COVID, as it was with the governor's orders. That's an important thing to remember. It's actually easier to meet that qualification. The other thing is that you have to show you're making best efforts to apply for rental assistance in your local area. And then the third thing is that you also have tried to make partial payments to your landlord based on what you can afford. So those are three things you actually have to do. And we're suggesting that you gather evidence of that and keep track of that, even though you're not required to produce evidence to give the declaration. You can sign it, say that's the truth, and deliver it. But you should always have backup about the efforts you're making to get rental assistance, to make partial payments, and also that you've had a loss of income that makes you not able to pay. Those are the 3 sort of main elements of it.
Okay. Now, Harry, based on what Tom said about these evictions and the rise in the number, we've worked very closely with you personally, your office, the Office of the Clerk of the Court, and Hillsborough County, trying to, and Bay Area Legal Services and everybody else trying to basically bring together a coalition in anticipation of this wave of evictions. So when we talk about when Tom talked about those numbers, those are just the filings for evictions, correct?
Right. So a couple of things, and it's great to see you, by the way. Thank you for having me. A couple of things, right? So first of all, that once an eviction case is filed, there is, a series of things that happen before it actually ends up in a hearing in front of a judge, and that judge makes a decision that would result in the issuance of a writ of possession that would then be served by the sheriff. There have been stories recently about, people just having their doors locked or something. That is not the way the process works. The process works that you're first served, given an opportunity to pay the rent, and then an eviction would be filed. The main thing that our office is going to be doing in the wake of this new CDC moratorium, which, as Tom, I think he alluded to this, it's a little bit awkward because it requires the tenant to actually serve this form on the landlord, either electronically or in person. What we are going to do at the clerk's office is, once a tenant has done that, if they wish to file that document, we will make sure that it becomes part of the court file, so that when the judge ultimately makes a decision in a hearing, they're aware that form was given to the landlord. There's no real mechanism for that, but the way that we do things is that if a person comes in and files something on the case, we're gonna make it part of the file and docket it to the case.
Okay. Now, a question for Jenna and or Tom. How do you how many calls have you received for this type of assistance? And do you have a mechanism to send people to these? Because, when we started our One Tampa relief fund, it was very difficult and we really tried to communicate that through social media, through a variety of ways. And it was very difficult to get people to, and I'm not trying to put the blame on residents, but I don't know if it was a lack of communication, that people didn't know that those funds were available, if the process was too difficult, or if people, it had just had the rug pulled out from under them and, were sort of listless. So how many individuals are calling in for assistance? And then is there a mechanism to say, all right, here is where you can go. The county has CARES funding, the city had this funding available, so that they actually know where they can go for potential assistance. And if it's not available, they can write on this declaration that they tried those locations.
I'll attempt to answer that. I think we have a very steady number of calls. I think we have, I believe, over 350 open cases. We've given advice and pro bono services in close to 400. We've resolved about 25 or 30 with settlements. So the calls are coming in and they continue to come in. We screen them. They either get a telephone interview with an attorney from our office. And in that, we certainly, point them in the direction of a CDC declaration and where to get and apply for public assistance or rental assistance. So if they call us, they can get that information. That information is also available on our website under our COVID-19 update link in the upper left-hand corner of bals.org. And if they click on that, and then there's a link to what happens if I'm evicted, you'll have a FAQ on this. And in that FAQ, you'll find a copy of the declaration. You'll find a question and answer. You'll also find a notice of declaration, which is something that they can sign and file with the court if they actually have an eviction case. So I direct them to our website, and that can all be self-service, even if they're not eligible for our services. But certainly if they call us and say they have an eviction problem, we can at a minimum give them, pro se advice on that and possibly represent them if they have an ongoing case.
And for everyone out there, if you have fallen behind on your mortgage or your rent, the first step you need to take is to have that conversation with your landlord or your bank. To have, there are a lot of people that are in this position. So have that conversation and then visit these websites, whether it's Bay Area Legal Services, it's Hillsborough County, or the city of Tampa at tampagov.org. We have all of our COVID-19 services there, and we can direct you out to different locations as well. So you got to reach out. There's help out there without a doubt. All right. So the legal, one of the questions that's on here is the legal protections that still exist. In essence, are the CDC moratorium right now is what we're looking at for the protection from the evictions.
I would say, Mayor, there is the CARES Act protection. Some of that is still available. So if you're in a federally subsidized property that's got a federal mortgage or insurance, there's still a requirement before eviction that there be a 30-day notice to quit. And in most cases under Florida landlord tenant law, if it's non-payment, it's a 3-day notice. So that's something that, we're arguing is still applicable. So that's just one little caveat on that.
Okay. Jenna, let's talk about the pro bono project Bay Area has started. How's it working? And let us know how the attorneys can volunteer. I know you've had an outpouring of volunteers. So that, again, describes what's so wonderful about our community. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mayor. So it has gone very well so far. We talked about it last time we were on the Facebook Live, and it's called the FACE Project. And my team and Tom's team paired up together to partner on a pro bono project that is actually statewide throughout the state of Florida. And FACE stands for Florida Attorneys Counseling on Evictions. And we have partnered with the Real Property, Probate and Trust Law section of the Florida Bar, as well as the Young Lawyers Division. So all of the legal aid organizations around the state are all rolling out this project. And the reason why we specifically partnered on this project is because Tom's team, we knew, would be inundated with the housing work. And so traditionally, pro bono attorneys that do work for Bay Area Legal Services don't handle landlord tenant eviction work because it is such a quick turnaround time. And we typically can't refer like emergency cases to volunteer attorneys and expect them to react quickly. But because of what we knew would be an avalanche of cases, this project helps take that burden off of Tom's team and allows us to shift some of that work to the pro bono attorneys. And the way it's working out very well so far. It's been in existence now, the project, for about 6 weeks, I'd say. Tom, is that about right? 6 weeks?
Close.
Yep. And we have an administrative assistant who's dedicated to taking these calls and screening them and getting them to the correct place. And we're covering North Pinellas and South Pinellas County, as well as Manatee, Sarasota, and Hillsborough. And we have partnered with the legal aid in Minnesota, legal aid of Minnesota, as well as community law program in South St. Pete. And then we're providing the assistance in North St. Pete. So it's a regional effort. And we're all devoting a lot of the resources specifically to this project because we were given a grant to do this work. And I think thus far it's going very well. Our administrative assistant and the staff attorney that are scheduling all the volunteers and partnering them with the clients, I think it's working out very well. They're being given an intake by a volunteer attorney, and then assistance with the pro se forms as necessary. And then the volunteer attorney has the opportunity to assist further beyond that intake if they wish to do so. And the attorney can just get right up and running by taking advantage of the training materials that Tom and his team have put together. And everything is available to the volunteer attorneys to react quickly and take care of these clients.
Excellent. And you've had a great outpouring of volunteerism from attorneys in our area, right? That's wonderful.
Yes, we really have. People have been so generous and they really want to help. And, the word has been spread not just by us, but by so many of the organizations and so many people in the community. So yes, we've been very fortunate to have a good response from the volunteers.
Yeah, and it's too bad that we have to, that we're in this position. But as I've said, I always consider myself the eternal optimist. But I really think that we are at the tip of the iceberg here, and the economic hit that's going to come. We will be able to recover much quicker as a region, really, than a lot of other areas across the United States. But the difficult economic times are still ahead of us. The way I gauge it, one of the many ways, is that there's a legal obligation to notify certain entities when a company of a particular size is having to lay employees off. And it's called a WARN Act. And from beginning my time as the mayor in May of 2019 up to the beginning, say, of February, March, I may have received 3 or 4 of those. Now I receive 3 or 4 a week. And they are listing hundreds of individuals that are being laid off from work. So we are working on a number of areas, retraining, especially the areas that were hit especially hard in hospitality, the service industries, trying to get individuals retrained and reemployed. On the bright side, as I said, we would recover much quicker. Tampa is a very, very attractive location for businesses, organizations, families, individuals around the nation. A study was done, survey was done a week and a half ago about individuals relocating from the Northeast, and the number one destination in the entire nation was Tampa, Florida. And so people want to come here. They want to be here for the quality of life, for just everything that makes our community so great. So we're lucky in that aspect, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us. There's no doubt about that. So Harry, let's go back through. So I was a police officer and have an idea of evictions, but I know you talked about the process of the filing the judge and then to the sheriff's office. But let's talk about how it's a civil action. There are different types of evictions for non-payment, for violation of rules, those types of things, and then a time span of how long that takes as well.
Well, generally, I mean, the first thing that happens is a demand has to be made for the rent. And that is really the opportunity when things are already in arrears. to start having those discussions with the landlord. I think that your earlier advice about being proactive in terms of those discussions is very, very important. But once the case starts to roll through, in most of these cases, the only way to stop the eviction is to pay the rent. Normally, that's just how it plays itself out. And I think that this CDC move really is going to give people an opportunity that is much broader than what the governor did to put a stop to the proceedings, at least for a while. I think the biggest problem is that there's been no money along with these moratoriums, certainly from the federal or state government. And so not only, look, Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa are doing everything they possibly can to get money into people's pockets, but a massive federal or state intervention is what's needed. And unfortunately, it's not just the renters, it's the landlords who aren't getting paid, so they can't make repairs, they can't, in some cases, pay property taxes and mortgages that they themselves owe. So it really does have a cascading effect. And to your earlier point, that's, I think, what is so worrisome about the short-term economic picture over the next few months. But in terms of the actual process, it's really very straightforward. And once you've been served, the cases move relatively quickly through the system.
Mm-hmm. And then the sheriff's office, actually, so from the judge to the sheriff's office for the actual eviction, if that becomes necessary.
Once the judge issues an order, the clerk will issue a writ of possession that will be delivered to the sheriff, and the sheriff will serve it. Mm-hmm. And that's when it's too late to do anything.
Yeah, no doubt about that. When the virus first hit, and it was growing, and it was clear where we were headed, the path we were headed down, I called Chad Chronister, who's a good friend of mine, our sheriff, and talked to him about the evictions, and he got with the chief judge to ensure that although they were still receiving them, that they weren't evicting people.
Right. So, and the clerk Pat Frank talked to him personally about the same issue. They were very
that right there shows how well everybody is working together to make sure that we're helping people out. And Harry, you brought up a great point that really is the social media questions. The only social media questions that came in were about the landlords. It's almost as if we're painting the landlords as the bad guy in this scenario. But there's a lot of individuals, the landlords, that this is their livelihood as well.
Of course, this is the way that this is the way that people make income, is by having a rental property or a garage apartment or something. I mean, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of individuals that may not have had a loss of a job, but they're still facing economic ruin because their livelihood is derived from rental properties that they may have. So
I think it's so important if there's a state or national effort to deal with this problem, it's got to help the renters and the landlords both. Right. Because without, and it should, it should be a 1-2 punch. And that's really moving money through the economy.
Yes, without a doubt. And there's also assistance. Some of the larger apartment complexes were able to receive the PPP money, but the smaller, sort of the in-betweens and individuals that may have a single home weren't able to receive that. And so one of the things that we have done with our One Tampa that provided residential assistance in mortgage, rent, and utilities, and then for small businesses as well. We have about $3 million in there, and we're getting ready to we'll probably start taking applications soon for a rental rehabilitation program. And so those individuals, the landlords, who, as you alluded to, Harry, they're not receiving the rental income, so they're not able to upkeep the property and those types of things. So we would be looking at taking applications for up to $10,000 a unit, and or infrastructure projects, roofs, plumbing, those types of things. So there will be a program with the city of Tampa that we're going to put in place here in the near future. So I would ask that everybody please keep an eye out for that. Again, you can find it at tampagov.net. We are also partnering with Catholic Charities, Metropolitan Ministries, THHI, and Salvation Army to assist those individuals that are homeless. And we are getting ready to put in place uh, um, an initiative that mirrors the Pinellas Hope. And so we will be able to provide some wraparound services for individuals who are homeless, either by eviction or from other areas. I talked about
That's outstanding. That's outstanding.
Yeah,
That'll be
it
great.
really is. It's gonna, and I have to give Chief of Staff John Bennett. This is something that really has been a passion since our days at the police department, and he's really done a heavy lift here in locating a property, getting the funding for it, and really getting it up and moving. And Catholic Charities as well. They do a great deal of the lift dealing with the homeless as well. And then also we are collaborating with the housing counseling agencies and Stetson University School of Law for the Know Your Rights workshops, so everybody understands how this eviction process works. A lot of people have never been faced with anything like this in their entire life. So, a lot of good information out there, and there's assistance out there as well. So I just want to make sure that everyone is availing themselves to that. So let me see if I have any other questions on here and see if there is anything else that anyone wants to bring up.
Mayor, I would just say on the eviction filings, I know that in some of the cases there's not potential defenses, but people should definitely, get advice about that, because there are lots of different issues that can come up in terms of requirements in the landlord-tenant law that can often make a big difference in being raised, and that sometimes gives some time, or also assert their rights. So there's lots of things out there, especially in other than non-payment of rent cases, but also with non-payment cases. And these are part of our trainings with the pro bonos that we bring these up. So there's lots of issues that can be addressed in an eviction that you may not think of if you're not a practicing lawyer.
Yep. There you go. And that is, again, that's a great piece of advice right there. We all have to make sure that we're availing ourselves to the information that's available. A number of programs out there. You don't know which one may be the best fit, so you have to make sure that you're looking up all of this information. So I want to thank you all very, very much for all that you're doing and your efforts in this area. Harry, you guys at the Clerk of the Court knew that this was coming, and we all got together and working as a group, all of us, whether public, private, we all have to work together to find the solutions to this problem, because and just paying the rent is a Band-Aid in essence, because if we aren't providing gainful employment for individuals to pay a month's rent, to pay 2 months' rent, they're going to be in the same position in a couple of months. So we have to make sure that we are providing those retraining programs, and we're doing that through our workforce development. Career Source is a wonderful sort of a one-stop shop for jobs that are available, retraining possibilities and opportunities. So there are services out there. Just make sure you reach out and you ask for help, because we are here to help you without a doubt. So thank you all very, very much for your time. I do appreciate
Thank you.
not that I don't want to see all you guys again, but I hope that we solve these these eviction issues, so we don't have to talk, at least in this forum. We can talk about something like baseball, winning the World Series, or we can talk about the incredible Stanley Cup win, or after Sunday's football game, we can start talking about the Super Bowl as well, because clearly we're going to win that. So I thank each and every one of you for your time today. And everybody out there, remember to stay safe, stay calm, wear your mask, and above all else, be kind. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.